I'm now joined by well-known independent forensic expert David Klatzow. David, a very good afternoon to you. Must be the easiest job for a defence team in South Africa to poke holes in police evidence.
Well, yes and no. The evidence lacks at the moment a certain gravitas that is needed in this sort of situation, and it's a great pity that a little more care was not put into choosing the investigating officer and the investigating forensic team. But ultimately those bits of evidence will not go away. They are susceptible to further investigation and to proper analysis at a subsequent date. Clearly there's going to be argument as to the way in which they're interpreted subsequently by the defense team and the prosecuting team, and that remains to be seen, because this is all going to turn around, in my view, forensic evidence. The eyewitness evidence has already been given by the only person who is alive to give that evidence, namely Mr. Oscar Pistorius. And it remains to be seen whether the forensic evidence supports or contradicts his version, which he's already given, admittedly somewhat vaguely to the court, but there is a version before the court.
A lot of people across the country talking about the fact that Hilton Pistorius walked across that crime scene without any coverings on his shoes. What went through your mind when you heard that?
Well, what went through my mind was the very fact that it appears that our wonderful South African police force don't seem to have learnt anything ever. They seem to go from one blunder to the next. Whether that is going to be fatal to the interpretation of the scene remains to be seen, depends what the defence make of it, but it's indicative of a poor level of crime scene management. It's indicative of incompetence on the part of the police. And I must tell you that if it is true that the police, after being in control of the scene for more than 2 days, failed to find a bullet that was left in the toilet, one questions their observational skills.
At whose feet does the blame lie for this? I mean, it's a ridiculous situation, isn't it?
Well, it's a very difficult question you ask me on television, because the truth of the matter is, let's be quite honest, the truth of the matter is that the South African forensic labs and the police force have decimated by some rather dreadful racial policies instituted by the government. People are no longer appointed on the basis of quality and ability, they're appointed on the basis of skin color. And I think that is having an absolutely disastrous, catastrophic effect on the ability of the police to function and on the ability of the labs to function.
From what you're picking up from authorities, we've got a new police commissioner. Is anything being done to get our forensics department, our investigating ability of the police, a bit closer to what we're used to seeing on television?
No. Well, not that I'm aware of. I took part recently in a subcommittee hearing on the police laboratories, and the police general who gave the evidence was far more concerned on the demographics of her staffing than she was on actually getting people who are competent. And this very morning I spoke to a very senior police officer who used to be very senior in what I shan't mention names, or the department, but he was a very senior police ballistics forensic officer who's no longer with them.
Just back to this case and looking ahead as the trial that's going to unfold, in terms of the forensic evidence that's going to be led, what are you most interested to hear about?
Well, I think that the key issues here are going to be a proper interpretation of the crime scene, a proper determination of the trajectories of the bullets, which may or may not give evidence as to whether Pistorius was wearing his prostheses or not, the angles of the bullets and the way they struck the toilet, and crucial in this case is going to be the ability to determine what level of light was present in the room at the time of the shooting, whether or not neighbors were close enough to hear the so-called screams that are alleged, whether those preceded shooting, and whether or not Pistorius's version is reasonable that it was the only way in which he could deal with an alleged intruder by firing 4 shots into the door. That is all going to also be determined by the exact nature of the blood splatter on the cricket bat, if there is blood splatter on the cricket bat, because it will be different if it was used in an assault as to whether it was dropped in a pool of blood. So the entire crime scene needs to be carefully examined by somebody with experience, and somebody who is able to give a proper opinion that is neither defense nor prosecution based. This is a matter for sober forensic evidence, and any forensic experts who take part in this particular case must understand one thing and one thing only. They are there for the benefit of the court, not for the benefit of the side that is employing them.
We'll leave it there. Independent investigator David Klatzow, thank you for coming in this afternoon.